All right, be the market expert. And so I want to kick it off with this. I don't know if everyone saw, but NAR has dropped its profiles, right? So this is coming through and they collect data and then they send this out. And again, all this is rear view facing data. And you're going to see, right? It says these are transactions through July 2024 through July 2025. So they're compiling a lot of data. And this is why this rear view facing information is taking so long, is because there's so much of it that they're going through. And like any other good data, right? We can crystal ball a lot of stuff and say, hey, this is what we think is going to happen in the future. And yet we are in real estate and we understand that's not how this thing works. So this is what NAR is going through. It's a hey, each year does provide opportunities and challenges for buyers and sellers. From the middle of 2024 through the middle of 2025, the market continued to have extremely limited housing inventory. And I get it, right? Everyone's like, well, you know what? There has been some inventory on the board. And yet, in the grand scheme of things, guys, when we start thinking about the population of the United States, there is not a whole lot of inventory going around. And yet, I would also say this: there are, with the shifting landscape that we are in, with interest rates being where they are, so we have an affordability issue inside the United States, and with that affordability issue, we are seeing more picky buyers. So let's look at this thing. So what your first one that you're looking at, this is 2023 through 2024, right? We look here on the left-hand side, 23, then we're going, I'm sorry, to 2025. Check this out. What this is going through and this is saying is this is your all cash buyers. 26% of all buyers in 2025 during that time period were all cash. All right. So if we're looking at that, right? Okay. Again, so let's break it down. One fourth. One fourth of all buyers in the United States were all cash buyers. Well, it's interesting because when we look at this thing and we start thinking about who is buying it, we kind of get a little bit more of a snapshot, and we get to look at it through a different lens. And so it says, as we've gone through, it says first time home buyers. All right, well, let's jump into the first time home buyers piece. It says the first time home buyers in the last year shrank to a historic low of just 21%. All right. So 21% of all first time home buyers were in the buyer pool of last year. I'm sorry, 21% of all buyers were first time home buyers. And yet 26% of all purchases last year were all cash. Well, that's what we understand. These are probably not the same group, right? If we were to look at this thing, we would say that 26% are probably in the upper echelon. They are your more affluent buyers. They're probably a repeat buyer. All right. So then we talk about the repeat buyers, but then we see 21% of all buyers were first time home buyers. All right. So we're talking probably less affluent buyers, first time home buyers. And we go through and we look at this. This is prior to 2008. The share of first time home buyers had a historic norm of 40%. It got cut in half, everyone. 40% was the norm prior to 2008 of first time home buyer population. Now your first time home buyer population is 21%, which gets even more interesting when you look at this. That median age of your first time home buyer, you know, the 21% of first time home buyers that were purchasing last year, they were 40. All right. So then we look at this. All right. So we're going through and we're saying, okay, 26% of all buyers last year were all cash. Only 21% of the buyer population last year was a first time home buyer. And that median age for a first time home buyer is now 40 years old. All right, so let's look back. All right, so let's step back from this and let's say, okay, what can I do with this information? Well, firstly, I think it's very interesting, right? If we were to go through and we would do a social media post, I think this is an interesting social media post, especially when you look at back this and you say in the 1980s, they were in their late 20s. All right, so then we go through and we look at this, and I would say this, let's step back and let's say, okay, what do my marketing channels look like? What are the places where I am having conversations with people to advance my real estate career? All right, because we can look at these numbers all day long. Unless we're doing something with the numbers to advance our businesses, this is all pointless. This is just entertainment. All right. So, what can we do with this to make sure that we are advancing what we are doing in 2026? So, I would say one of the things is we know that we need to look inside of our social channels. And I'd probably say TikTok, right? While I'm saying that TikTok isn't probably the worst place in the world to advertise, I would say your number one place to advertise is probably YouTube right now. If you were talking about marketing, I saw something today, and I'll give you the stat. Let me pull it up on my phone real quick. And it says that 84% of US adults are using YouTube right now. 84%. 37% are using TikTok. All right. So then when I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, 40-year-olds are my first time homebuyer demographic, and only 37% of them are going to be on TikTok, yet 84% of them are going to be on YouTube. Guys, I think that if we're using some marketing channels, I'm going to get on I'm going to get on YouTube. Facebook is actually number two at 71%. Instagram is 50. All right. Reddit's at 26, WhatsApp, they're considering that a channel at 32%, and then TikTok at 37. So as I'm taking this data, I'm thinking, okay, what are my marketing channels looking like to be able to get in front of people a little bit more passively at scale? Guys, YouTube and Facebook is probably where I'm going to live. But the second thing I'm going to look at is who are the people that are interested in the space that are actually advancing forward? Well, I'm probably going to look at open houses, everyone. And so we can't sleep on open houses in this market. Those are people that have their hands up. They're literally saying, I am interested in real estate. And yes, I get it. Sometimes it's going to be the neighbor, and sometimes it's going to be a little bit slower than what you would like it to be. And yet, guys, these are very, very important channels that we should be looking at to make sure that we're getting in front of as many people as possible. All right, cool. So it goes through and it says, hey, first-time home buyers who are successful in purchasing site that high rent and student loans are two of the foremost costs that hold them back. All right, so we get this. So we look at it. So rent is expensive as well as their student debt is expensive. But it says this, among the elite first-time home buyers who can enter the market, they are most likely to use personal savings, financial assets for their down payment assistance. Guys, this is also what's important, that we need to be making sure that we're having conversations with our lender partners. What programs do you currently have that a first-time home buyer who is 40 years old could be able to use to be able to live the American dream and purchase their first house? So we look at this. So here you go. Here's your graph, right? And so all buyers, let's just look at the all buyers. Let's get rid of the repeat buyers, even though I think that's very, very interesting. Let's get rid of the first time home buyers. Let's just talk about all buyers in general. When we look at this thing, it says that 18 to 24, only 2% last year, everyone, 2%. So I'm probably not living on TikTok to go find business right now. 25 to 34, 10%, 35 to 44, 16%. All right. 54 or 45 to 54, 15%, 55 to 64, 20, 65 to 70. Guys, 65 to 74-year-olds, 25% of them are buying houses right now. So hopefully, if you step back and you look at this from a different lens, you're saying, is the channels that I'm actively marketing on, the places where I'm actually getting face to face and belly to belly to voice with people, like, are these people here? Am I targeting more 18 to 24-year-olds, knowing that only 2% of them are buying houses? Or am I in an environment where I'm actually getting around these 45 to 74 years old, right? So I'm not talking about like go to Furs at like 4 p.m. to go have dinner. But what we should be doing is we should be going in and seeing, like, where can I go have conversations with people that actually have money? Because that's really the conversation that we're having right now, is where do people have enough money to actually go buy real estate? Now, here's an issue that I'm going to run into. All right, cool. I was really worried I was going to have a tech issue there, but here we are. Median percentage down payment by first-time home buyers and repeat. So we look at this thing. Your repeat buyers is this dark blue. We have first-time home buyers yellow, and then all buyers are light blue. Well, your repeat buyers, guys, are putting down 23%, which, okay, like we see that all the way across the board. Your all buyers, 20 to 19%, and your first-time home buyers still 10%. So what this is saying is not much has changed since 1989 as far as their down payments go. Their age has changed. It's taken them longer to get those down payments. And so when we're looking at this, the down payment doesn't change. It's how long they're able to save. Now, here's what's interesting. We are going through the largest wealth transfer that we've ever seen as a nation. And again, like we look at this thing, the conversations keep popping up and they keep popping up and they keep popping up. What we're seeing is this baby boomer generation, which holds the most wealth in the United States right now. They have assets. What's also interesting is I saw a stat, it was yesterday. I don't think I have it up for you guys today, but I think it was 7%. 7% of all the homes last year were transferred where they were inherited. 7% of all homes last year were inherited. All right, of all the homes that transferred hands, okay? Transferred hands were inherited. And so then it says, okay, well, we didn't see like a big influx of homes hit the market. So what happened? Well, what I would assume is that these children, we're going to call them children, and they inherited their parents' home and they probably moved into their parents' home and they're renting out their home. They're renting out their first home, their starter home. This is also where we're seeing the psychology change as well, is that when they're going through and they're bringing down 10%, now keep in mind 10% in our market, that's $60,000, right? In the Denver metro. If we're talking about Jefferson County, that's $70,000. They're bringing $70,000 to a home in Jefferson County versus Denver. And then when we look at this, that is a big dollar amount, right? So we're going through, they're bringing $60,000 to $70,000. That's only 10% in our market. So we're going through and we're just making sure that we're having as many conversations as possible because that is a very, very large amount. And I saw somewhere, I think it's 34%. 34% of someone's dollars, their take home is actually what's going towards housing right now. And what we do understand is this, in Colorado specifically, with we know the people that are moving into Colorado, they're not making less than $100,000. I get that there's people that live in Colorado currently that make less than 100K, but the people that are migrating in, unless they're moving with family, they're earning north of $100,000. So $30,000 is going towards housing, housing alone. So it's taking a lot longer for them to go through and figure out where the $60,000 to $70,000 is. Because again, when we even look at our condo market is not affordable. When we think about this, when we think about the life cycle, historically speaking, kids, they grow up, they go off to college, they meet their spouse, they get married, they go into their first time home, condo, then they have babies, they have to move into a bigger home, the babies go off to college, they downsize. The cycle is changing right now. Okay. And so we understand that at least in Colorado, when we're going through and we're talking $500 HOA and all these other things that are going into this, the condo market is no longer affordable. And we're seeing condos sit longer than we've ever seen because this is no longer the best alternative for them. So what are they doing? They're just sitting on the money until they have enough to make that down payment. And they're looking for their forever home. All right. That's the psychology of your buyers right now. So our job is to have as many conversations as possible. And yes, plant those seeds for the down the road people. But what are we doing today to get in front of those 40 to 70-year-olds who are actually buying real estate? YouTube, Facebook, if I'm talking about marketing, and open houses, guys. This is where we need to live. All right. So we're going through, it says first time home buyers and just what's happening in these households. Married couples, single female, single male, unmarried couples, other. So we go through here and we can actually see that this couples are actually decreasing. Where it's interesting, single female is increasing. Okay, so maybe I'm looking at my demographic and I'm saying 40 to 70, which kind of feels weird, but for that 40-year-old plus market single female is what is dominating the purchase space right now. That one's increasing, where these couples are decreasing. All right, when we kind of see that unmarried couples are going down as well. We're also seeing that single males increased a little bit, but this is the demographics. Okay. So then I'm looking through and I'm saying, okay, my female agents in this on this call right now is what environments are we in? What groups are we a part of where there is single females that are going through that where I can do something, right? Is there a wine club? Is there a book club? Is there insert whatever here to where I can get in front of this demographic of people to build community, because that's what it's about. But what we do understand is that this community that we're building does turn into real estate. All right, because we have very exciting jobs. And so as you're going through and you're talking about your 2026 business plan, we're 27 days in, is what Debbie told me earlier, is that we're going through and what are we doing to get in front of the actual buyers? Which is what this is telling me, is it's 40-year-old single females. What are we doing to get in front of them? All right. So we're going through it. So this buyer's use of real estate agent or broker. Here's the deal, guys. Real estate agent or broker. We saw a little bit of a decrease in builders, and FSBO for sale by owners is pretty flat. People are still using real estate agents. All right, let's fast forward. Let's go into something else real quick, guys. It's all available. It's all, you can Google this NAR report and you guys can get all this information. What I did think was interesting, we're not going to leave a whole lot in this, is that home buyers canceled deals at their highest rate ever in December. And I've talked to a lot of you guys that had deals that these clients raised their hand for inspection contingencies and canceled the deals. And then you guys have even requested these inspection contingencies, and the buyers have been like, no, not sending the inspection reports to you. And so as we go through this, what we do know is that we had one of the best interest rates available in December, and yet we did see a big level of these canceling. And so as we're going through, I think this is important. What we don't know is what January looked like yet, except for I think it's still happening to some kind of degree, is we need to prep our sellers, right? We need to figure out what our sellers' motivation is to sell so we can have the conversation with them to keep these buyers in the deals. Also, I think what's very important is that as a buyer's agent, that we're going through and we're making sure that we're having the conversation to figure out what their intent is so that we can help them with this transaction, right? Because as we're going through and we're thinking about these different things, what's going to happen is they're going to look at the price tag. And I think that's what we really are. Yes, rates have gotten better, but you still live in Colorado. We're talking $600,000 at 6% interest rates outside of the buy downs. That's a lot of money. 1/3 of all their dollars is going to just their housing. That's not their Netflix account. That's not what's going in their refrigerator. That is not getting them to their job that they have to work at for 30 years so that they can actually pay this thing off, right? This is just housing. So what are we doing to have these conversations so that they know what's going on? And guys, that's why we need to understand what contingencies are available, what concessions are available, all these different mechanisms to keep the deal together. Because here's the thing, the sellers that are listing their homes in these months, they're motivated. No one is putting their house on the market in 0-degree temperature to leave their house for a showing that doesn't want to get this thing sold. No one's testing the market. So we need to be able to have these conversations, these open dialogues with both agents as well as our clients, so that we can keep these things moving forward. Here is my favorite article of the last 7 days. Don't count on the silver tsunami for housing inventory surge. Oh, here's my 7%. All right, so check this out. Some 340,000 US properties were transferred through inheritance during the last 12-month period in August. All right, so the silver tsunami, right? The silver tsunami was, listen, all these baby boomers, the old baby boomers, the older baby boomers are going to go through and they are going to start selling their houses, and they're going to either go into their retirement home, or they might go live in their kids' ADU or their mother-in-law's suite, or they're going to just downsize, and we're going to see this huge impact and surge of homes coming on the market. And the whoever put this thing together was like, and it's all going to happen at once. Well, here's the deal. 340,000 properties in the United States were transferred. 7%. 7% of all US property transfers in 2025 as traditional resale slowed. All right, so we're going through here. And what does this tell us? Well, I think it could look either way. Again, I think that what we could see is it's going into the kids. The kids are getting the home, and then they're making a decision. Does our home suit the needs of our family that has expanded at this point, or should we go into the parents' house? And then they're making a decision. Okay, now what do we do? Especially if it's the parents' house and it's paid off, right? The home was bought pre 1990. The home is paid off. All right. So they're going through, the home is paid off pre 1990 or in the 1990s. And they go through and they say, well, what can this rent for? And depending on the size of the home, right? They're bringing in $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month on this home. And they're like, okay, mom, dad, move in with us. And then we'll rent out your home. And depending on what that is, guys, that's $36,000 to $48,000 a year in revenue outside of costs and other things going on. And so that is more revenue coming in for the household. And they're going in, they're making these decisions. And I think we're going to see that more and more and more. And so what are we doing? Well, we need to be making sure that we're having as many conversations with the family so they know that we are their trusted advisor. Because what could also be the alternative? The other alternative is, depending on when the kids bought their house, they rent both houses and they buy a new home. And so now they're starting their portfolio because we understand that most millionaires in the United States were made through real estate. And so now they're putting together their portfolio. And I think that what we saw last week when we saw this executive order go through about these portfolio investors, these large investors, they're saying it's 10 doors. Guys, that classification right now, I think that they said it's 10 doors, single family homes, makes you a large investor now. So kind of interesting as we go through, but here's the thing, 340,000 properties were transferred through inheritance, and we did not see home prices go down. We did not see a flood of inventory hit the market. And so these are the things when someone's talking about Airbnb bust, silver tsunami, the housing crash, 2008, the big short, insert whatever here, guys, we will never be able to outbuild this shortage that we are in. And we will never have enough inventory hit the market to where prices ever come down. The only thing that we will see a significant drop in real estate prices if we go to war, which I pray does not happen. And yet that is the only thing that we will see a significant thing like we did in 2008. They have fixed, air quotes, they have fixed all of the issues that have caused all those situations that we were in. And yet there is nothing that is going to get us there. And here's the deal. If we do go to war, no one's rushing to go buy a house. All right. So we need to just be able to go through and say, okay, where are you getting your information? Which crash borough did you find your information from YouTube on? And be able to have those conversations, be like, this is why we don't anticipate this ever having an impact. Which leads us to this one. 106 major housing markets with year-over-year home price declines and 194 posting annual gains. Okay, cool. So we look at this thing, so let's call it 300. 1/3 of the homes took a decrease year over year, and 2/3 of the homes had a annual gain. This is what's important about data like this. It's annual. This is year over year data. So when you look at this thing and it says 31 of the nation's 300 largest housing markets, 10% of the markets had a falling year over year reading in 2024 to 2025 window. And then it says 106, 35% from 2024 to the 2025 December window. Well, check this out. So if we go through and we look at this, let's find out where we are. We're somewhere right here. There's Colorado, there's Denver, Aurora, Lakewood, Boulder would be here somewhere. Colorado Springs will be here somewhere, but 3%. So what they're saying is December 24 to December 25, we saw a 3% decrease in what the home's value is. This is what is super unfortunate about this data, unless you understand what this data is truly saying. So you're absolutely right if you're saying, yes, if I bought my home in December of 2024 and I go to sell it in December 2025, potentially I did lose some money. That's what this data is saying. What this is not saying is if I bought my home in 1990, that I'm losing money on the sale of my house. Now, here's the deal. This is what I would say. If anyone bought their home pre-2021, they're probably got some equity in the house, all right? Unless they did a bunch of refinances or did something to pull out the equity. What we should be doing is going through and making sure that our people understand this. I can tell you that I've had these conversations when someone's like, I've looked on the news and the news said that we're losing money on our houses. And it's like, no. You bought your home for 300,000 in 1998 and it's worth $1 million now. You did not lose any money. You sell today. You are equity rich in your home. And so these are the conversations where someone is going to get wind of an article like this. This says 1/3 of all major markets in the United States have lost money. They haven't lost money unless you sell. And that's the deal. You never lose money on your home unless you have to sell. Now, who has to sell? Well, there could have been the primary income driver in the home passed away and they didn't have insurance or benefits, and now they're having to sell. Totally get that. There could be divorce. They have to sell. They could be getting transferred or deployed. They have to sell. As a real estate agent, as a real estate economist of choice for our consumers, that's when we're going to go through and we're going to say, well, hey, what is prompting this conversation? Okay, life event. All right, let's pause. Do we think that there's a scenario where we can rent the property or do something else so that you don't have to sell? And let's see how the market bounces back. If we get to a point where we say, okay, there isn't one of those options, then yes, they have to sell. They're probably going to lose some money. And guess what, guys? It happens. It's unfortunate. And yes, it happens. I have literally had deals where the buyer or the seller is literally cutting a check at the closing table. It's unfortunate. But yet, when we look at this, I would say your biggest impacted group on this is your CHAFA buyers, right? Your CHAFA buyers are immediately underwater when they purchase a home. And think about who your CHAFA buyers are. Your CHAFA buyers are your less affluent, younger generation of buyers who are immediately getting a down payment assistance, and they aren't putting a whole lot of money down, if any. Sometimes they're getting a check. And then you go through and then they lose their job or they get divorced or they're getting transferred to somewhere else and then they have to sell. Yes, those people are losing money on their home. But as the real estate economist of choice, we have to make people understand, we have to help people understand that you don't lose money unless you sell. So yes, the market could be going down, but historically speaking, since the 1990s, homes have appreciated 4% year over year over year. Real estate is still one of the strongest investments that you can make to protect your money against inflation. You lock in at a rate, and that rate does not change. Of the ebbs and flows of the market, it does not change unless you call the lender and you get it changed. This is a hedge against inflation. Your money's protected. Didn't want to do this. Rachel came in today and she yells at me, Charles, be the market expert. Are you going to talk about this RESPA lawsuit? And I said, no. And then I thought to myself, well, the only reason why I would be to make sure that we understand what is happening here for protection for you guys. I don't think this is necessarily news. But yet, what has happened now is that this group of people who have filed this lawsuit, similar to other lawsuits that have been filed the last couple of years, has said that they were forced to use this product by their real estate agent, and that's antitrust. All right. So when we go through here and we look at it, they're saying this is RESPA. But guys, I want to make sure, like I've heard about this rule of three, and I don't necessarily agree with it, right? Like city work, you got to go get three different bids and pick the best bid and whatever. I would just make sure that you guys understand that you have the best vendor partners. Now, if you're telling me, Charles, I don't, then you don't. All right. But when we're going through and we're vetting our vendor partners and that we're doing these different things to make sure that they're still awesome, that you, as your clients, are asking for these people. They ask for a lender, they ask for a title company, they ask for a contractor, a plumber, electrician, a whoever, that they understand that they do not have to use these people. All right. There is no tying arrangement here. My services, I have vendors. You may use them. You do not have to use them. You're welcome to go get your own, do whatever you want. But I think that's the only important thing that we need to take from this is that if you're saying, hey, this is someone that is a rock star, that they're really a rock star and that you're allowing them to have an out. All right, let's look at what Logan Motoshami has to say. This is last week's data, guys. And we're leading off with purchase mortgage application data. Look at this. This should excite everybody. Now, again, I understand it. If you're looking at this data and you're like, Charles, some of this is refinancing, you're absolutely right. We have some of the lowest rates that we have had in a very, very long time. Some of this is refinancing. But what this should also tell you is that even though you live in Colorado and we're talking 600,000 to $700,000, 10% down from a 40-year-old single female purchasing a home, she's still talking to a lender. And if that lender is not your preferred lender and you are not their preferred real estate agent, your buddy, your family member, your neighbor is being sent to another real estate agent. And the only way we can stop that from happening is having as many conversations as possible and being that real estate economist of choice, which means we have to get in front of people. Again, guys, this all boils down to how many people are we in front of? How many conversations are we having? And what opportunities are we allowing people to get some insight from us about the Colorado real estate market? Because we are the experts. All right. So we look at this thing and we can see, guys, this is what's cool. We know that 2025 data was better than 2024 data. And 2026 data is even better than 2025. These are people literally raising their hands, reaching out to a lender to feel and see what they qualify for. And what we do know is this: I don't think anyone's missed the boat yet. But we do know that this is 30, 60, 90 days out. People are starting their searches and maybe figuring out what they qualify for. Then they're living on Zillow a little bit. Then you know what's going to happen? They might be going into open houses and kind of getting a feel for what that looks like. Guys, don't sleep on this. You need to be having lots of conversations. What this is telling me is yes, there's seasonality, but buyers are starting to wake up right now. Buyers are waking up, figuring out what they qualify for. They don't believe in the silver tsunami or the Airbnb bust or the housing crash or anything. They've been sitting on the sidelines. They've been sitting on the fence waiting for this stuff to come to fruition. And guess what? Their butts are sore and they're jumping into the real estate transaction process and they're starting with the lender. We look at this thing and we look at this pending sales. Pending sales are up. All right. So pending sales are up. And we're looking at this. So that looks good. We're not going to talk about the 10-year yield or the treasury, but single family inventory. Guys, this is good news. We need more inventory. More inventory stabilizes the market. I don't think we see a housing crash with more inventory. All it does is it brings prices down a little bit. But again, remember, people 2021 and younger, earlier, those people have massive amount of equity in their home. And guess what? What we understand is this: most sellers become buyers. So it's a wash at the end. Even if their home prices have to come down a little bit, guess what? The home prices are coming down on the buy side as well. And in Colorado, with our price point, this is a good thing. So we want to see more inventory hitting the market. This is going to bring more people out. This is going to make more sellers more realistic, because if they have two other neighbors that are lesser price, they got two options. The first option is go through and make your price point stand out by increasing the value of your home, going through, updating the kitchen, get the fresh coat of paint, maybe new carpet, new hardwood floors, the bathrooms. They're like, I don't want to do that. What's behind door number two? Lower the price, because that's the only way we can be competitive in this market. This is good. So we go through and we're just talking about national new listing single family homes. This is not condos. Up. All right, cool. So we're seeing more inventory. We're seeing more buyers waking up. Guys, like everything is coming online. Properties with recent price reductions. Okay, cool. They're going all the way back to 2022. Remember 2022, this got weird. Low interest rates, low interest rates, low interest rates, interest rates spiking really, really quickly. And people are dropping their housing. Why? Because they're under contract on another home. They got to sell their house, conditional sale. That's why we see this. That's why this looks weird. But what we do know is 1/3 of all homes nationwide every year, outside of a couple of outliers, take a price decrease. So when we're looking at 2026, a couple weeks in, 27 days, 33%. Guys, we're right in line. This is nothing new to us. 1/3 of all homes, nationally speaking, take a price cut every year. So the week ahead, the week that we're in right now, the Fed Reserve meets, but is not expected to move rates. All right, we get this. And it says, following the meeting, we will closely watch what Jerome Powell does as he wraps up his term. All right, guys, this is very important. This isn't political, but we're going to mention the president. All right, so what happens is this. We have the president of the United States. The president of the United States actually gets to appoint the Fed chair president. Coincidentally, Trump did actually appoint Jerome Powell. And what do we know about the current administration? The current administration is only going to make appointments to people that fall in line with the current administration's agenda. So you have to believe, with as boisterous as the president has been, that we are going to have the next Fed president be in line with dropping rates. Now, here's the asterisk. The asterisk is this: Senate has to approve whoever gets tapped. Now, what is going on right now, we've already gone through this, but if you weren't on one of these calls, that we do understand that the current administration is looking into Jerome Powell's spending of their building, of their headquarters. And the Senate has popped up and said, hey, we're not going to endorse anybody if this investigation is going on. So we're going to see how that kind of plays out. And yet all of us on this call should be rooting for this thing to go forward. Let's get better affordability. Now, here's the deal. It's a pendulum. It's a dual mandate. And we understand that this dual mandate doesn't necessarily flatten out. And so what I mean by that is, what does the Fed have to do? Well, they have to keep inflation down and they have to keep employment up. Well, that's very hard to do. Those two things are at odds with each other. And so this is what I think happens. At crystal ball time, rates go down. All right. Interest rates go down. I don't think it's anything crazy, guys. Here's the thing. You'll never see 3% again. I think most economists believe we're going to be at like 4.5 to 5.5, somewhere in there. Don't go out there and shout that from the rooftops. But 4.5 to 5.5%, and it's going to be a slow drip. It's not going to be overnight. Because again, it can't be overnight. Why can't it be overnight? Because then the banks lose money. If we all of a sudden go from 6% to 4.5%, everyone's going to go refinance. The banks are going to lose their money because they have to refund it back at that point. That's a big deal. That's 2008. That's too big to fail. So then we go through and what do we see? So we see these rates start going down, rates start trickling down. And then what happens? People start spending more money. All right. It's not 2021 all over again, but people start spending more money. Then what happens? The cost of eggs go back up. All right. So I just want everyone to be aware of this. When we're talking about the largest financial price ticket that most people purchase in their life, real estate, and guess what? You have the keys to every house in the United States, well, at least in Colorado, that is on the MLS. And so we're dealing in that product. It's going to make it easier for those people to go out and to go buy housing because the interest rates, the cost of money is lowering. But at the same time, everyday household items are going to start going back up. And so just be aware of that. Like they can't do both. But what also happens is rates are going down, more people have jobs, which means more people are making money, which means more people are spending money, which means prices are going to go up. All right. So we just have to be cognizant of that. That's why like the Fed has this dual mandate. And what they've been doing right now is they haven't been touching anything. And so then what has happened is things have been pretty stagnant. And we have been in a real estate recession, even though there's no such thing as a real estate recession, right? Everything would be recessed together. We would think that in our business, we have seen record low sales, and we have, because interest rates have stayed elevated for so long. Well, let's talk about interest rates. Here's just 1 month. All right. We're talking December 27 to January 26. Guys, this is pretty good, right? I do see a little bit of fluctuation right here, which I don't like, again, because when you start seeing these bumps, this is what gives people this sense of timing the market. And we understand that timing the market is a lie. And yet when we're looking at this thing, it's kind of going down, kind of flatlining a little bit. This is good stuff. The reason why this is good again is because sellers become buyers. A seller knows that their homes are going to sit for 30, 60, 90 days on the market right now, probably closer to 60 to 90. And so if they put their home on the market, they can't lock in their rate until they identify a new home they're going to purchase. And so if we keep seeing this big fluctuation and rates shoot up, well, then they're going to buy a lesser of a home. And so that's what actually scares them to put their home on the market. Also, what you have is when you start seeing these drops, that's when I think your buyers get cold feet again too, where they're like, oh man, interest rates are a little bit high right now. I want to wait till they drop more. And then they pull out of deals or they just do whatever. So these flatter lines, this is what we want to see. There is no time in the market. All right. What we do understand is that when Jerome Powell says something, when President Trump says something, the rates fluctuate. All right. We get stock traders doing different things. We got bond markets moving around, and we do have a little bit of panic. This is good news. We want to see flat lines. And again, remember, if you see anything or hear anything this week, which we probably won't, about them dropping rates, that does not mean instant rate drop. Please do not be that real estate agent that starts shouting that from the rooftops.